Welcome to the channel, Optimize Every Day, where we're helping you to make a 1% change daily. Welcome to Optimize Every Day, where we're looking to make a 1% change daily. So, when we were talking yesterday, we were looking at what your improvements were, and it was, if I remember right, you were looking at becoming more efficient.
More efficient.
So how
and working
was
on
that?
the sound stuff I was working on. It was good. It got bad. I think we talked about that, and we talked about failing forward. So it got bad. I've definitely failed on my mission, but then things got really good because of the failures and failed forward. So that went really well. And
So you're saying that you actually learned something from your failure.
from the failure. That's how you have to do it, man. You have to, I guess in business they say, you're going to get a lot of no's to get a yes. You got to knock on a lot of doors. You're going to get the right yes. So it's all about ROI, or the return on investment of what you're doing, right?
Yep.
If it takes me 6 hours to knock on a certain amount of doors, let's give a broad amount. I knocked on 50 doors in 6 hours. I got nothing. I went out the next morning. I knocked on the next 3 doors. I finally got a $2,000 sale. Well, I mean, that's $2,000 in a matter of hours. So take all the bad parts and get the wins at the end of it. Setback is just a setup for a comeback.
Yep. Well, even Edison and Tesla had huge failures before they had wins.
Yeah.
The light bulb, it was 10,000 different items before it came up with the filament that worked.
That's right.
And now we have light bulbs that don't even have filaments.
Right. Yeah, technology.
We've improved the product. It's a better mousetrap, basically. So that's awesome to hear that you had that breakthrough.
Yeah, and today's been supremely, because the breakthrough happened. Big time production today. I mean, just flying through these things that before took a longer time. So efficiency's up today.
So on my end, I wanted to get in touch with people. And I wasn't touching the paperwork.
It was more connections.
Although I did do paperwork. I went and talked to somebody, and they got me referrals to not one attorney, but 2.
Sheesh.
So
got blessed in the process of going hard. Yep.
So I've actually been in contact with one of the 2. They've emailed me back and are we're going to be setting up a time to actually have a call. So there's like a huge improvement there.
Great connections, because your network is your net worth, like we always say. So that's what it is.
So next steps, it's just building on that and getting more of the paperwork done. So there is a process. The making the 1% improvement every day is super awesome. So we're going to be trudging forward. I can't do 1% on the paperwork every day, or it's going to take me 100 days to get the paperwork all done.
Right.
And I don't have that much time.
Yeah, it's 100% effort on these days.
It is a 100% effort, but but I only have to make a 1% improvement.
Right.
So, and that means that, at the end of the day, maybe I'm getting that paperwork done a little more efficiently and a little bit faster because I'm learning how to do things better.
That's right. And
I'm learning how to read the stupid IRS rules and regs better. So, so I was thinking about it, and I thought we'd talk a little bit about procrastination.
Yes.
Because I see procrastination being one of those things that it's we sit there and say, yeah, I'm going to make this 1% improvement in a specific area. And then I get scared or I do something that causes me to procrastinate. And I find that when I procrastinate, it's one step forward, two steps back.
That's right. That's right.
And so all my improvement just goes away when I procrastinate. And procrastination is one of those big behaviors that impacts a lot of us. We sit there and go, yeah, I'm going to get out there and, if you're looking for a job, you're going to say, I'm going to go out and I'm going to, get 10 applications out today. It's easy to do that nowadays, with the computer. You just go online, you go to Indeed or, ZipRecruiter, whatever. And you just go do a search and you find the jobs and then you just start filling out the applications and trying to make contact with these people and trying to get those opportunities built. So that's an easy goal. So why do we procrastinate? I know in my life I do it. I'm sure you've done it.
Yeah, I think we're all guilty of that at some point. Procrastination. The reason I think, just my theory, because I'm definitely not an expert in the field, but my theory as to why we procrastinate would be a very simple thought that the things that are really worth having in life take an amount of effort, hard work, and sacrifice. It's painful to get to where you want to go, right? And I think humans are pain adverse. Naturally, most of us. There are the rare few people who love pain. They go to the gym because they love the pain, right? There's people who love pain. But most humans, I believe, are pain adverse. They don't want it.
Absolutely.
And so procrastination and lounging and laziness and all of that stuff it feels so good. Can't lie. It's like eating sugar instead of healthy food all day, right? The healthy food's kind of a drag, man. I got to eat chicken with no seasoning, no crust, and I got to eat salad with barely any dressing, and that's kind of sucks. It's not fun. It's not exciting. And I think that's this root of procrastination, where it's like, you put it off because the thought of doing it is kind of painful. I think it's pain.
I think that there's some truth in that. But I think when we're looking at making a 1% change daily, that we need to start changing our thinking about why we're procrastinating and taking it from I'm afraid, I'm scared, I'm whatever that causes that pain point to be a situation where we're sitting there going, searching and going out and trying to find a new job is not really all that hard, and it's really not all that painful. But we sit there and go, but if I do that, then that means I have to, and you build this story in your head.
Effort, pain at first, and I love how you just said scared. There's a fear involved with being ambitious and going for it all day, every day. You have to tackle fears. You have to bust through walls to get to where you're trying to go.
Yeah.
And most people ain't trying to do that.
And when somebody's looking for a new job, they don't need to be tackling, big giant walls, but they need to be realistic.
To them. To those people who don't do that simple thing that you're talking about, because to me and you were like, just go fill out some applications, do what you need to do, right? There's people out here who, when you tell them that, it is a dread. They look at that like, oh no, and what if I go there and I fail? Some people have the fear of failure when they get there.
Oh yeah.
I don't want to go to this job and fail, and I don't want to be called something or looked at a certain way. That is the fear you're talking about. People just fear all parts of these things.
We have a lot of situations that create an atmosphere where it makes it easy to procrastinate. Yeah. So, you mentioned...
Enablers are number one. Enablers. Goodness.
You mentioned the fear of failure. Failure it is a fact of life. And failure is an opportunity to learn. And a lot of times people don't recognize that when we learn, we're improving. Just like my example of Edison and the light bulb. Everybody's heard that damn story where, Edison went and it was 10,000 items that were before they came up with the filament. Well, that Edison didn't go through 10,000 items himself.
No.
He hired people to do a lot of this stuff. I'm not going to get into the history of Edison and the conflict between he and Tesla and everything else. That's a very fun story. And there's a lot to learn there.
And Edison's hoarding of patents from other people, that was pretty bad.
Yeah.
He had like 1 million patents. How do you have 1 million patents?
That said, there's a lot to learn there between Edison and Tesla, but that's a different story, and that's not what we're here talking about. We're talking about that daily 1% improvement, and when we're looking at that daily 1% improvement, we need to think about, why am I scared of talking to somebody about a job? Either you're going to get the job or you're not. You're qualified for it or you're not. I mean, I've seen people go apply for jobs that they're so far underqualified for, but they've been able to talk with the manager, and they've been able to sell them on their ideas and their thoughts and their understanding. And then the person says, hey, I see that you're not really fully qualified for this job, but let me give you a helping hand.
Yeah, they might like your passion. They might like
right
that you're passionate about what you're trying to do.
People have been taken and given opportunities of education and other things where they sit there and go, well, I'll get you trained on how to do this job so you're doing it right, and then you just have to ensure that you stay with our company for 5 years or something.
Yeah.
And people make agreements to that because they like the person's attitude, their desire, their drive, even though they don't have all the qualifications. And so they've put out their 1% improvement. Their 1% improvement is, I'm showing the world that I have the capacity to do. And that capacity to do, and showing that I can do this without having the full set of skill set. Anybody can learn the skill set if they want to and they're passionate enough. But if you don't have that passion, you're not putting out that 1%. You're, again, it's like procrastinating. You're taking 2 steps backwards. And we need to be subscribing and thriving in a lifestyle where we are making a daily 1% improvement. And the 1% improvement is small steps. It's not huge steps. And then when you get that opportunity because you put that effort out there, it gives you a situation where, maybe you have to run a few feet to get where you're going, and you're putting in more than 1% for a little bit. But you don't want to overdo it either. We're in a situation where if we work too hard, then we burn out and we cause pain. And this 1% idea is not to cause pain. This is
small steps.
Small steps. It's build up to it. It's like when you are doing a job and they're having you move a stack of bricks. today I'm moving, 10 bricks an hour because they're kind of heavy, and that's what I can do. And then tomorrow I'm moving 21 bricks in 2 hours. And then the next day I'm doing 11 bricks in an hour. And then I'm doing 12 bricks an hour because my strength is getting bigger. But I'm not working so hard it's causing me pain. I'm working at that level where it's just coming to that point of where it could be causing pain. We don't want to be causing a major pain, because if it's a major pain, we're going to stop. And then we're just going to go backwards. That reminds me of when I did a microfracture on my knee. And I had to stay off my knee for 8 weeks. Oh my God, that was the most horrible time when I finally got off the crutches and had to start walking. The atrophy of my leg in that 8 weeks was so much. And my muscles tightened up and I couldn't. And I'm somebody who doesn't like to do stretches anyway. But I actually had to stretch out just so that I could function, because the atrophy and that not being able to do what I normally do in my regular life activity was hindered. So there's lots of situations that can cause us to not have that 1% improvement. And it literally atrophies our behaviors and atrophies our physical capabilities and atrophies our mind. So we're needing to look constantly forward. We don't need to ever be looking back in a way of like, the back is what has happened, and we're having to reflect on it and holding it up high. If you're looking back, it should be, I want to see the sunset I'm moving away from, or it's the stuff that I'm improving from. And having a memory of what's in the rearview mirror is perfectly fine. But it's not an area we need to be
stuck in or lingering on.
Lingering in.
Yeah, that's true. I think there's so many ways. There's at least 2 ways to look at it. Like I always go by this old saying that says, if you don't let go of things in the past, you can't grab onto the future, right? If your hands are full with what's behind you, there's no grabbing the future. There's also an old saying. It's like, if you're stuck in the past, it's a state of like depression. But if you think too much into the future, then it's anxiety. And so that's why it's good to stay present, because it's a gift, right? And so I think that now for some people, and I got a great example of this from my daughter when she used to play sports. It was, I used to try to get her motivated by not liking a certain team or a certain coach or going against a certain player, right? And I'd be like...
A very, very common tactic.
That did not motivate her at all. Because I believe that people are motivated differently. Now, me, back when I played sports, I would be fully motivated by the last time I faced that team. I would be fully motivated by trying to dominate or embarrass a player off another team. So I kind of operate on vendetta, right? And that's what gets me aggressively, it motivates me, it fuels me. That fight, that battle, I don't know, everybody. And I think everybody's different, because You know, my daughter, she's a great athlete. She would go in and dominate the game. But if I tried to have her dominate based upon anything that would fuel me, didn't work for her. She couldn't do that. It was something else driving her. So I think I'm saying all that to say, I think we all have different things that drive us.
Oh, absolutely.
And those drivers go to different levels of greatness. Some people come from very great, like say, wealthy families, but they might look at the wealthy family and say, that's them. I want my own success. So they'll go out and they'll increase the family's wealth by tenfold, right? Some people come from a very
a modest means.
Yeah, modest means. I mean, the trailer park out in the country, we didn't have anything. We're eating, raccoons for dinner. And they'll be driven by never wanting to live like that again. So something from the past may drive you, but if you're hanging on to a negative past and letting it drag you down because of your personality type that depresses you, you have a problem. There's a problem there where you need to find your motivation, find your purpose, and that's how you're going to be able to take those steps every day. You have to be motivated to do it, and whatever. And here's the last thing I'll say on that: the thing that motivates you has to motivate you through fear, like you talked about earlier. The fear, I don't think we can stress enough. Everything you want in this life lies on the other side of fear. If you don't want to bust through the fear, face your fears and tackle them, you will not get what you think you're trying to get. It will not happen. You have to face your fears in order to get there. Everybody wants to go to the promised land, but nobody wants to go through the woods with the lions, tigers, and bears, right? Go through the woods. I'm telling you, go through the woods. Face those fears.
It's kind of like the Robert Frost poem, "The Road Less Traveled," and you need to go the road less traveled. But sometimes that means that you need to go get some help.
Yeah.
Camaraderie,
teamwork. Yeah. Assistance, network.
Sometimes you need to go out and you need to pay a therapist to talk through your situation.
Exactly.
And, find where your issues are. Because sometimes, things, they get in the back of our heads. And then they cause us to procrastinate. They create situations of fear. They create situations of anxiety.
Thoughts that aren't even real, right?
They're not even real. They're just made up in your head. And you have to resolve those issues inside of yourself so that you can move forward. And that may be part of what your 1% requires to move forward. And, not everybody needs that, but there are a lot of people who can benefit from going and seeing a counselor and talking about it. And, if you've been traumatized by something, and I know we've talked about trauma. We've talked about trauma in the past, but there are therapy methods that can help you get past traumas. And suddenly that 1% isn't 1%. It might be 10% leaps in days, because suddenly you've dealt with a trauma that's been holding you back. And suddenly now it's like you got a spring behind you pushing you forward. And when you get in that position, you just gotta make sure to not push as hard as maybe you might think you want to, because you don't want to get burned out from doing it. You want to be able to, when you stop running, you're not out of breath.
Exactly.
And then when you're out of breath, you stop, and you're wheezing and everything else. We don't want you doing that. We want you to run a ways and then keep walking, because that walk, even though it's slower than the run, may be more beneficial to you than running even further and then stopping. It's that tortoise and the hare mentality, where the tortoise ends up passing you, even though he's a lot slower than you, because you jackrabbited way ahead. and the jackrabbit may not feel it, but he is feeling it. That's why he took a rest. Is because he wore himself out getting so far ahead. And then in his mind, he's like, I'm so far ahead, I don't have to worry about that damn tortoise. And before he knows it, that tortoise is past him and he's going over the finish line. And you're still sitting there, even though maybe the distance to the finish line is only 100 feet. You've lost that edge. You've stopped doing that 1%, and now you've gone a couple steps backwards. So
and that's always a part of the equation that we face here. But I want to go back to when you were talking about the trauma aspect of it, right?
Yeah.
So many people deal with that and need to seek help for these things. I think for our audience, that an analogy that was put into my mind years ago about trauma and the effects of it, right? So say you start off fresh without trauma in your life, right? As most of us do. But you have this energy, this highway that is your energy, like cars and traffic going down a highway. So your energy can flow properly. But when you have a traumatic event, that's like a car crash on your highway, right? Now, if nobody comes to clean that crash up, the energy or traffic does not flow properly anymore. Then
very true.
Yeah, then a few years later, you have another accident on your freeway of energy. So now you have these two traumatic events, which are two traffic accidents, and your energy does not flow the same. Now, if a human being is overloaded with too many of these events that are not cleaned up by a therapist or talking to somebody or shadow work or whatever it is that works for you, if you're going to be an absolute mess. Your energy will never be right for people, the world, or yourself. And you're going to feel a little bit depressed about the state of your life or in your livelihood not being what it is because you don't have the energy to make it happen. You have to clean up that trauma, get it off your highway of your energy, let it go, and your energy will flow correctly and you'll be able to achieve more of these steps daily.
Right. I agree. So, and we're all faced with potential traumas every day. And sometimes we just bypass what could have been a trauma because of luck or planning or...
we might get lucky. But some of us get traumatized, when we're kids. And we don't have the power to get help, in a lot of cases. You might be traumatized by a death in the family when you're 8. We're finding out now that kids look at divorce of parents as just as bad as a death. Yeah, it's like, we're finding things out. And I think that, going through those early traumas, a lot of kids or adults might not be able to get those issues addressed until they become an adult out on their own and they go to seek help. By the time, say, you might have a 21 or 22-year-old person go seek help from a therapist or whoever, and now we find out that there's 13 traumatic events from their childhood. That we now have to clear off this highway, because if you don't get those accidents cleared off that highway, this person's going to choke out and probably not make it to 30 years old, right? It's a tough situation. So trauma is very serious, very important to get that cleaned up.
There are a lot of people who they end up with sexual trauma. It is a proven fact that 1 in 4 boys will be sexually assaulted.
Yes.
And 1 in 3 girls. Now
at least
1 in 3 girls. And in a lot of cases, it might be even 1 in 2.
And I want to say something else too, because I love that you brought that up. But on the girl side, a lot of times this isn't even trauma from being abused. This is actually trauma from them. Many of our young ladies going out and having early sexual experiences that they're not ready to handle mentally. So they give themselves.
In some cases, that's true.
Yeah, a lot for our girls. I think the average age of girls going into sexual behavior now is 13 or 14 in the United States.
That's ridiculous.
So we'll have to check out. We'll give you the numbers for sure later, but that's it's an early stage, especially without education, for a girl to go try to give herself away to boys or young men or whatever,
Yeah,
and that will get her trauma because of that. And she wasn't
It can.
abused, but it's trauma, and they don't understand that. So by the time you meet her at 22, 23, she's 10 years into traumatized sexual behavior. So I think that's something we have to look at and get cleared up for people.
Yeah, and that leads to a lot of other problems
Yes.
in life.
Yes, it does.
And there are therapists that are well equipped for handling those kinds of things.
Yeah.
And there's some very good trauma therapists
Yeah,
out there.
yeah,
in the world.
they can help you remove it.
So looking at what our 1% is, and we've shown that, hey, we're actually making strides in the 1%. So, what is your 1% for the rest of today through tomorrow?
I think since I finally got the audio stuff rolling like I want, now it's about pacing everything together and really completing a project I'm working on. So being efficient was about getting there faster. The audio setup was about having a structure to get me there, a vehicle to get me there faster. And now that I have those things set up, it's really about, can I take this step to get this mission completed?
So basically, you're saying that your next 1% is getting your project management skills a little honed better so that you're staying in track on what you're doing and making sure that that project plan stays
that it gets there on time. A deliverable.
The deliverable is there.
Is
so
there
that
on time.
It gets accomplished.
I had a deadline which was like tomorrow, but it might make it. We don't know yet. But the deadline, I had a deadline set, and I don't like to set deadlines right now, but that's what I'm doing.
But when you're a project manager, deadlines are important. And the other thing is, when you set deadlines and you're trying to improve to that 1%, sometimes, you have to let things drop at 80%, because it's not that it's good enough, but if you try and get it to the point where you feel it's 100%, it's going to be 180% better than anybody thought it should be, and you've wasted an opportunity.
Yeah.
So, it's knowing when to drop it,
where
it's appropriate,
when is it
and
there?
You can always come back
and it's
and
a balance.
make it better.
Yeah, and there's always tomorrow too, right? You can keep improving every day. So that's the incredible thing about this life. You don't, even if we have $100 million today, we could lose it in a week. It could be gone. Or we could have nothing today and have $100 million next week. You just don't know. And so you have to keep this striving going.
There has been comments made by certain people about people having to file bankruptcy because they had, things happen in their life.
Donald Trump multiple times. Multiple times.
But, when you have the mentality of improving yourself continuously, while bankruptcy is not the ideal thing or something that everybody wants to do, it definitely is a place where you hit rock bottom, and then the only direction you have to go is up. And there are a lot of people who are billionaires who have had to file bankruptcy multiple times in order to succeed. So it's not always a bad thing.
No,
it's not always a good thing.
Yeah, it's not. Bankruptcy, something like bankruptcy is a strategic move. I mean, this in the world of business and life and finance, I mean, that's a strategy that can really work for you. I've known several people, and I know you have, that have successfully filed for bankruptcy.
But when you're looking at bankruptcy, that's not something that needs to be gone into lightly.
No.
Because if you don't do it right, you're making yourself worse off than better off.
You'll be stuck in a situation for
and
a good
that
amount
can
of years.
cause you trauma too.
Yeah.
So the trauma of being in debt versus the trauma of being bankrupt it's two different animals.
Yeah, we're gonna have to talk about later in a later episode the self-inflicted traumas that people do.
Right.
I think that's really important.
Yeah,
we always talk. We always
cover that.
because people always like to act like, well, my trauma came from outside, and it's this people and that people, and they point the finger and they don't take personal accountability for the unnecessary trauma you caused yourself. You caused that on yourself. You know you did that to yourself, and so
wrapping up here.
Yeah.
You know, we know that we need people to like and subscribe.
Oh yeah.
And we need them to comment. Mm-hmm. But what is your 1% improvement that you're going for in the next 24 hours?
Yeah, like I said, I think for me, it's trying to complete a project, trying to complete something I'm working on. It'll be the first episode of something I'm working on. So that would be what for me.
So moving forward, that 1%, that project improvement.
The one step is motivating.
How is that 1% going to be magnified going forward? And this is just a question.
Yeah, kind of. It's because I know the thing that's in my mind right now is how hard it's going to be to do this. It's hard. It's an extremely focused amount of work, and it's a lot. And excuse me, in order to do it, I would have to do an unreal performance. And so that's what shocks me or excites me on a lot of days is, can I perform at a unhuman level? Because when I see things I like, I'm like, wow, they did something unhuman. Like looking back at Da Vinci's work, I'm like, who could do that? You know, Leonardo da Vinci did so much in such a short lifetime. It's unhuman, you know, and I love that type of performance. When I see certain athletes and they do something so amazing, I'm like, that's crazy, you know. So I look at myself, no matter how old I get, I'm like, can I do something unreal that people don't expect that is just awesome? And so trying to reach that as a small little goal, a daily step, a goal, that excites me, and I'm motivated by that.
So if I'm understanding you properly, and correct me if I'm wrong, mm-hmm. what you're saying is that project management improvement that you're looking at will take and give you better project management capability on the next project that you're working on, because I know you're getting close to the end of this project, but you're also looking forward to the next step.
Because
the next project that builds on that project.
There you go. That's exactly right. Because there's systems you work on, right? So if you work on a system, say we're building shoes, just something random here. Say we have a shoe company, and we find a system. It takes about a day and a half to put the soles on 1,000 shoes, and now we develop a system where it takes an hour and a half to put the sole on 1,000 shoes. We're increasing our efficiency. It's the system we've set up that has efficiency, so we get a better return on investment. Our ROI goes up, everything. Our investors are happy. This is how, you as our viewers, we have to operate this way. And you as our viewers, you have to think this way. Everything you think in business and life should be, how do I create a good return on investment? Okay, I'm going to invest $1,000 into this venture. I need a good return on this. How about 3,000? How about 10,000? Right? And so the efficiencies where you can cut costs. If I don't have to pay employees for the next week, that's a big cutting in cost, and that goes back. So it's kind of that type of thought process for me. Every day I'm thinking about how to squeeze the most out of whatever I'm doing with the projects.
I hear what you're saying, and I think that you have a good idea. I think that based on what I heard, that there's some growth been made in you in the last
4 days.
In the last 4 days,
yeah.
And I think that your thinking will evolve.
Mm-hmm.
Because I heard what you said, and you made mention of a couple of things. I'm not going to go into that.
Yeah.
At this time, we'll touch on it at a later time, because we go through and look at these in a little later time, and we'll come back and re-review some of the things that we've said.
So many subjects.
There's going to be a point where we're going to want to say, damn, I see all this growth from when we started this channel to now. And, we need to plan on having a time out there where we just go look at what happened in the past, just so we can review with the viewers the improvement that we have seen personally. So that way they know that they can do the same thing.
Yeah.
As far as me,
What do you think?
in the next 24 hours, I'm going to be trying to build on the personal relationship thing.
Yeah, you just started getting better connections.
And since I'm starting to figure out how to get the connections, I'm not the most outgoing person naturally. I have definitely learned over years how to put myself out there better.
Yeah.
But I still don't feel like I'm, the best person at putting things out there.
Yeah, I can understand that. I mean, I think I'm naturally introverted, but I understand that in order to bust through those walls and tackle what we got to tackle, I got to play like an extrovert. A lot of acting extroverted, right?
Yep.
It's like, okay, I got to brave up today and go do what I don't want to do. I don't want to public speak today, but I do. I don't want to go on this trip and meeting night, but you have to get out there.
And when we put it out there, we put ourselves in a position where we can put it out there again, and it makes it that much easier to get out there. So my 1% is trying to build those relationships. So that
Stepping into the network world. That's awesome. Yep.
And we'll see how that goes. I'm gonna be working on that. So again, like, subscribe, and comment, and we will see you guys tomorrow.